Hello and welcome to the DXDAO governance discussion. Today is the 1st of June, which is my unofficial day for the start of summer. So happy summer, everyone, unless you're in the Southern Hemisphere, of course. But starting with a quick proposal roundup, we have a few proposals live on Mainnet and Gnosis Chain. First proposal that's set to pass soon is DXDAO commitment to the ministry position at the Daoist. So that's something we've chatted about for quite some time. There was already a signal proposal to gauge interest in that, and this is the proposal which actually transfers the funds over to the Daoist. So for anyone who's not familiar perhaps with the proposal, it's so the Daoist has been organizing events around DAOs and the whole Web3 governance sphere for a year or two, perhaps a year, I would say. And DXDAO has been an enthusiastic supporter of the Daoists. We sponsored a number of their events, starting with Paris, which I believe was the first one. And this new ministry position grants a couple of privileges, so to speak, early access to tickets, but also kind of supports the Daoists on their mission to both produce content and organize events surrounding the whole DAO sphere. And for anyone who's interested in more details, we've discussed it at length in previous calls, I believe on the previous governance discussion, but also on community calls, etc. Not sure, Sky, if there's anything to add, but I think that sums it up quite quickly, right?
Yeah. I was just discussing this because we're doing some reorgs with like DX Voice Squad, multi-sig, and budgeting and things like that. And so this was a little bit unique because we did a lot of discussion. We did a signal proposal on Gnosis Chain, which basically passed with a lot of support. And then we're doing a mainnet proposal to actually move the money. And so yeah, there are different ways to do this. They wanted the money on mainnet, so we need a mainnet proposal if we want the money to move from the DAO. And there's always something to be said by, a DAO to DAO actual movement of funds, which is like, it's on the blockchain forever. So it's cool to do it that way. Theoretically, like if we had, some squad multi-sig that had funding already allocated for things like sponsorships of different things, once the signal proposal passed, like theoretically that money could move in another mechanism. There could be a multi-sig that executes the signal proposal. So just something to keep in mind. I think it's fine to do it the way we did it, but there are other ways to do it. Then also shared a video that they created. They've made, they are good at making content. They made a video about this opportunity, but as being part of Dawn and being a ministry position, I think it would be cool to think about from a marketing and DX Voice perspective, any videos and ideas that we have. Like these aren't like graphic videos of our products, right? These are videos more of like people in the contributors talking about certain ideas, and maybe it could be around an event that we have or something we participate in, or it could be like a educational thing that we want to communicate. But maybe doing some stuff with their content team is included, is a idea we can explore. So there's lots of things that we can do, and once we are part of this and have access to the meta hub and stuff, we can start thinking about ideas. And even anyone that's in Lisbon or visiting Lisbon, you have the opportunity to visit that destination more and get closer with and participate and hang out, have discussions with all the other people that are part of Dawn and that are hanging out and working on DAO related stuff. So it's a great way for those, especially in Lisbon, to connect more with all of the other parties and all in kind of one place. Maybe there's a certain day every week or two where you guys all gather there and can work in person. If I was in Lisbon, I would love to do that. But yeah, maybe if we visit or something. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely, and I heard they have a little pool as well, so it might be half work, half swimming.
Dave can cannonball off the roof into the pool.
Who says I haven't done so already? Well,
yeah.
But yeah, so that, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Sky, kind of returning what you were just saying a minute ago about like where the payment is coming from. I do always like it coming from. I think it's nice when it comes from DXDAO on the blockchain, and I just kind of was looking at the address that this proposal is being sent. This is requesting 25,000 USDC, and this is actually, I think, the third time that if you just look on Etherscan there, you can see DXDAO has already sent USDC to this address. So I think, and I just sent a transaction for one that was done almost a year ago for $2,000. So I guess that was the first Paris one. So I think it is cool to have that track record and like be able to like point to that and everyone kind of see that it really builds up legitimacy. And I think that's something to consider when we're thinking about how like the payments and things flow.
Totally. Yeah. And I think their address should be the Daoist.eth. So it should be like from DXDAO.eth to the Daoist.eth.
I don't know if it's not set that on Etherscan, because it's like, that would be really cool, right? Because then it's like, whatever, I guess that is their multi-sig, but they should set it so that it would just say that.
Yeah, I'll tell them. It is that, but I don't know why it's not. Yeah, maybe it's not set in ENS or whatever. I'll tell them.
I'm sure, Chris, you meant to say it's their DAO, not their multisig. But I believe the multisig probably has to own the ENS to set the record. But yeah, that would be cool. Any final thoughts on the DXDAO Daoist ministry commitment? I'll take that as a no. Then the following proposal is actually the final swapper emission funding for Arbitrum and Gnosis Chain. So this proposal moves 2.2 million swapper to set up the upcoming farming campaigns. Not sure, Keen and Chris, if you guys wanted to give a brief overview of that.
Yeah, happy to. And apologies, a bit under the weather here. But that proposal requests the final amount for the remaining epochs in Arbitrum and Gnosis Chain to the multi-chain multi-sig to be distributed to Gnosis Chain and to Arbitrum. So not really much to add beyond what's in the proposal text, but moving the swapper funds, we need to get moving on farming this coming week for the June 9th period. So please give that a vote if it hasn't been voted on already.
I believe it's passing already, thanks to Caney Fork, I believe.
And thank you, Chris.
I never get a thank you when I vote on proposals, but I'll take that.
Because you don't vote on mine.
I will start from now on. Thank you, Wayne, for the thanks in the chat. Moving on to a more controversial proposal, so to speak, given that it has both upvotes and downvotes, is Augusto L. DXD bulk vesting withdrawal. I think perhaps this is a good occasion to maybe give a bit of an overview of why these proposals are happening. So Tammy already requested one previously. Augusto now requested his. There is a proposal on Gnosis Chain as well from Pulp Machina to request some DXD vesting. And I think overall, to keep it concise, it's that we haven't been deploying the DXD vesting contracts when an individual actually submits the proposal. So that's something we will be doing with the new contributor payment schemes we'll have on Gnosis Chain. But as of now, that hasn't been happening. So it's mostly been somewhat of a back office job, keeping track of the various DXD that contributors are owed. And given that a lot of these are reaching the first year of maturity, contributors are able to claim partially some of those funds. And that's kind of where contributors are submitting their own proposals and kind of trying to keep track of DXD outstanding, etc. I think in Augusto's specific proposal, there was some confusion around DXD prices. Of course, we've changed that a couple of times in the past at what amount contributors are vesting at. It used to be all-time high. And then now it's market price with a floor price of the all-time high that was purchased of the bonding curve. So I think there was just some small error around that, and I assume the proposal will be resubmitted shortly. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to resubmit a proposal next week. I have to check with Ali and Chris, because I use the values that were approved on the Mainnet proposal that passed on December. But yeah, seems like there is an error on my calculations, so I have to resubmit it. That is why it's not voted, so don't vote on it.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's an error on the calculations for the proposal that was submitted, not really on Augusto. He was following the ones in the proposal, but going over and looking at the numbers, they were a little different. So Augusto, yeah, we're working through that now. And yeah, should be a pretty simple fix. But yeah, as David said, there's Tammy's out there. I'm on my to-do list to do one for Caney Fork that hopefully will be another model for this too. But yeah, that's something that I know people should be interested in doing, and we can kind of crank these out. But I think it does require some double checking, right? And this is like a verification thing. So it takes like more eyeballs is good. Looking at different numbers, saying, pointing out if something looks off there. And so, yeah, for the proposals that are coming in now, right, there was actually just one submitted by Machina. So typically people will put how much they're requesting, and then you can cross-reference that to the proposal that passed, presumably as long as that they have the right numbers. But like for Machina's proposal I saw submitted, I think this morning, like those numbers match up exactly over the same months, and then he's just taking the percentage of that there. So that's the best way to verify it for voters who want to check. And then like the next level, right, is to go back into the original worker proposal when that DXD was earned and like double check and make sure that cross references with the right price. And that's what actually, in doing that, Ali caught it for Augusto's most recent one. So yeah, we'll be trying to be more vigilant to make sure we're double checking here.
Fabulous. Then moving on, we have a proposal which is actually mirrored both on Mainnet and Gnosis Chain, which is a call for payment facilitation service providers. In brief, I think a lot of contributors have been struggling receiving their contributor payments. It can be a very tedious thing to do depending on jurisdiction, given that the DAO, of course, is not legally incorporated anywhere, something we're, of course, very proud of. But that can also create some issues for contributors claiming payments, etc. So a lot of contributors so far have been setting up limited liability companies, but also banking, etc. can be an issue. So this proposal really lies out a framework of what the DAO kind of requires, and a framework for eventual special purpose companies to apply to facilitate these payments on behalf of the DAO. So I think the motivation here for the DAO is to have a couple of options. Probably it would be good to have these geographically distributed. So of course, regulation, etc., also changes in the future. So for anyone that's especially been having problems with payment, I suggest to check out the proposals, vote on them, and yeah, this one is really just laying out a framework for kind of future proposals to then apply and actually provide these services to the DAO. Any comments? Otherwise, we'll move to some other very interesting proposals, which are actually not boosted yet, but we have the MVP of these proposals on our call, which is Augusto L, which is about some scheme removal proposals on Mainnet. As maybe a brief overview, and anyone please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way DXDAO works is that we actually have a main voting machine upon which different schemes can be installed. And so when you submit your contributor proposal, you're actually using the contributor payment scheme I believe it's called funding proposal on Mainnet. And then there are also different schemes, for example, multi-calls, which on Mainnet, for example, have some whitelisted contracts they're able to call. We also have generic multi-calls, both on Mainnet and Gnosis Chain. We've been using the one on Gnosis Chain a lot more, given that the one on Mainnet has a much longer voting period. And these are all different parameters that you can set in a scheme. And as it's summer is coming up, we're doing some spring cleaning and removing some of the schemes that are no longer used or which are simply redundant due to other schemes offering similar or same capabilities. And we're currently going through that process. Augusto, is that correct? And anything to add?
No, that is correct. And well, I went forward with what we discussed on DAO Talk, and I created the proposals on Gnosis Chain and Mainnet to remove the schemes that we discussed. The only change that we did when we were discussing the proposal on the forum is to keep the ENS registrar. I think we have a bunch of ENS schemes, but we are using one to assign the ENS domains with a with 4 days boosted time period. So that's it. One after all these proposals passes, we are going to have on Mainnet contribution reward scheme. This is the main one that we are using. 3 multi-calls and the one for the ENS assignment. And on Gnosis, we are going to have the contribution reward, them, and I think only the multi-call. These are going to be the only 2 schemes that we are going to have available on Gnosis, which is even better because the less scheme that we have is the less access that you have to avatar funds. So the idea is to remove a scheme that we are not using, like you said. I don't know if the proposals have been boosted. I talked with John, but also, heads up to Chris, you, Dave, anyone who can go and double check the addresses that we talk on the forum of the schemes to be removed. And I just created a proposal. I want someone else to boost it, so we make sure that we have more eyes on the proposals, and then they're going to pass.
I intend to review these to run them through Tenderly and kind of confirm that they are doing what they should be doing. And I encourage folks who know how to do that to also do it as well. And I think maybe it would be good actually to talk about verifying it in some of the public channels, like whether that's the governance channel in Keybase or maybe even Discord. So yeah, Chris or Dave, if you guys beat me to that, I would say kind of show people how you're verifying it so other people can see and understand, because obviously the plugin scheme is a very sensitive and important scheme that has a lot of power. So it's good that we kind of demonstrate the proper kind of way to verify this stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I was just kind of looking at it. I did not immediately think of how to verify it. So I guess looking through the Tenderly thing, but it's removing it is a little bit different. So I guess verifying that it's the right scheme, I guess, is the big thing. And then I haven't looked at it on DXvote yet, actually, but on Alchemy, it doesn't say much besides remove scheme. But I will look at, I'll look at this too. And
I'm also not 100% sure what the proper process is here, but I think Tenderly for sure, and just kind of making sure that it is only removing the one we expect it to and isn't doing anything else, right? So.
Yeah. And actually, I'm just looking at DXvote does have the more specific functions in it, because in Alchemy it just kind of says what it's doing there. But yeah, I'm also this is somewhat exciting because these are like I said, spring cleaning. These are the things that are very core to DXDAO governance, and it's interesting and to go through this process because we kind of take it for granted, I think, too much. And I'm just looking at Goose that these will expire in 27 days. But I don't think that'll be a problem. We'll look at that before then.
Awesome. And that wraps up the current mainnet proposals. Moving on to Gnosis Chain, we have 2 proposals from Van Grim. One of them is actually reclaiming the rep, so he made a mistake in his original proposals, and this is just reclaiming the correct amount of rep. The second one is claiming the entity formation and maintenance contributor stipend, which we passed earlier this year. Then we have our second Colombia stipend request by Dave, which is live as well. And if you do vote for it, I will also personally thank you. And we have a number of buyback orders as well. We have 203, 4, and 5. If you check the forum, you saw there are also the updated trading volume data about DXD. So the trading volume has decreased slightly more again, but I think that's pretty much expected in the current market situation. So those the ones submitted from tomorrow onwards will reflect the new trading volume. Then we have the Milan V contributor proposal, Wayne's contributor proposal, Augusto L contributor proposal payout, and Madusha's contributor proposal as well. Another proposal which is also live is actually MME Invoice, which is a law firm which was retained, I believe, in Q4 of last year. They've kind of, the way it's been working, so I believe I submitted the proposal and perhaps it's lacking a bit of context and clarity. They were retained under D Labs on behalf of DXDAO, so they've just continued, of course, invoicing D Labs. And I think we'll probably publish a bit of a review post about what has been done working together with them and the results. Apologies for the background noise. My summer terrace is currently being finished with some nice zinc to make it waterproof. But I think there'll be a post kind of detailing what MME has been working on, and mostly it's been really exploring how the DAO can pay contributors in Europe, particularly based, given that they're, of course, in Europe. And that's kind of also where the call for payment facilitation service providers came out of. But yeah, that's something we'll recap on. And I believe there are no proposals live on Arbitrum 1. So that pretty much sums up the proposal roundup. One thing we could perhaps spontaneously include in the call, which we've been chatting about, is perhaps a brief overview of the DX Colombia hackathon. If anyone wants to take the floor on that, I believe there are some fascinating news and updates.
Hola, yes, I can. Well, we have been talking a lot with Lateral, which is the company that we hired in order to help us organize the hackathon and retreat. And well, during the past week, they have been looking for possible venues that met our requirements in order to make this 3-day hackathon. We found one, and we are already talking with them. We are talking internally about if we want to put energy and effort there in order to make the hackathon happen. The idea will be to book the venue, to have something in place already and set in stone that we can start showing to co-organizers, to possible co-organizers. I'm talking personally with Hardhat, going to meet with Zeppelin tomorrow. And yeah, we are starting meeting with future possible co-organizers. The person that I share the idea of what we want to do in Bogota, they liked it. So that's it. I think the next step is going to be we are going to create a proposal, hopefully on Gnosis Chain, to spend some funds. I think it's going to be something near $15,000 to book the venue for the hackathon. It has a refund policy, and we have other options on things that we want to do in case we don't want to do the hackathon. But I feel very confident that once we get the venue in place and we show to the co-organizers, they are going to feel what we want to do and going to jump on board. That is the plan so far. Everything's looking good. The only bad thing is that We saw that ETH Global is organizing a hackathon the same dates. We can be talking about it, how we are going to approach it. The idea will be once we have the venue book, we are going to talk with them and share the ideas of what we are going to do, share our plans in order not to compete directly with them, but maybe to organize ourselves where both of us can make a good hackathon, right? And that's it. I don't know if I'm missing something. John and Melanie has been with me organizing and helping make this happen.
I think that covered it. Lateral's been nice to work with. I'm working on my Spanish.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think you summarized it really great. I think that this would be a really cool opportunity for DXDAO to have like a technical focused hackathon in Bogota. Obviously, there are like challenges that, we're facing because a lot of us don't live in Colombia, but Lateral has been super helpful. And we'll have more updates coming in the upcoming days after we talk to Zeppelin or after Augusto does, and we'll update the community.
Muchas gracias, Augusto. Me encanta el trabajo que tú haces en el hackathon.
Gracias, Dave. Gracias. I hear that someone else also needs to work on his Spanish.
That was unwarranted. Wonderful. Well, if anyone else has something they want to speak about.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna maybe just comment briefly on the hackathon thing. I think I said this yesterday about the Chinese saying that I actually went and looked up. So it's mojo shi tou ge he, which is cross the river by feeling the stones, which is like, I think, an important way to think about any big endeavor that you're doing. It's hard to know what the destination is and be able to like kind of build all that at first, especially something that's new like this, that you kind of have to be able to sell something that's real to the co-organizers before you actually have that thing that's real there. And so I think like the approach we should be having with this is, different things come up is right, like figuring out how we can move things forward without like over committing ourselves to something so that we can be nimble and cross the river by feeling the stones. And so I think actually what John said in the DXer chat was kind of summed up as like the way I was considering this is like this is a the downside here is if we commit $15,000 to this, that there would be $10,000 for that would be committed to the pot in the event that things didn't work out. And I think that is not a huge, obviously that's a chunk of change, but that's not a incredibly large commitment to be able to move things forward and explore this, and especially to try to get the co-organizers on board. Once you have a venue, right, once you can show people pictures, like that actually makes things much more real. And so I could see that it'd be worth it for that, just to try to like move things forward and explore this idea further. And I think this is part of a broader investment that DXDAO like should be making in like branding and marketing and kind of like being more present in a lot of different ways. And we have the proposal for the Taoist, right, that is going to be paying $25,000 for that. Like that in the same way is like an investment on a future like payout in terms of branding and recognition that expands DXDAO's presence. So I think this fits in line, the hackathon idea in general fits in line with that overall strategy. And yeah, as long as we're crossing the river by feeling the stones, I think we should be okay.
Well, I'll make sure not to be wearing any shoes when I vote for the proposal, so I can make sure to feel the stones.
There's something that I mentioned, John, yesterday, is that I think this is also going to be like the first project in DXgov where a lot of people from different squads are going to be involved. So it's going to be quite fun to work on this with other people from DXgov, for example, from the from the guys on DX Voice, or the person who are going to be taking care of the swag, and making sure that all of us are being involved in this project, which put us all together. And it's going to be a test for our organization too. I see this as a challenge. We can make something very good, and it's also a test for us. So yeah, that is how I see it too.
I guess the one thing is, isn't ETH Global organizing a hackathon on the exact same dates?
Looks like they are, yes.
Yeah, so ETH Global will be holding their hackathon on the same dates as ours, the 7th, 8th, and 9th. But I think that what we have to remember is that, ETH Global is, their focus is on so many other things, and we're focusing mainly on DeFi and DAOs. And so I think that the goals we're looking to achieve are different than ETH Global. So I don't think that it's like direct competition with us per se. I don't know if Augusto, you had anything else to say around ETH Global having their hackathon the same time as us.
I mean, there are going to be plenty of people, a lot of people that is going to attend in Bogota, a lot of hackers. Very important is going to be to get good co-organizers. Again, if we get good co-organizers that the developers and the hackers they feel related to, that's going to help us a lot. And we actually want good technical coordinators to have a good technical quality event. But yeah, first we need to book the place, make something real, do this first step, fill in the stones, and the stones feel solid so far. So let's continue walking, crossing the river.
Wonderful. Then I have two more topic requests in the chat. One coming from Nathan regarding a comment I made earlier in the forum about rep sync, and a second one about auditing from John. So I guess we can start with the first one, which was a comment about how to sync rep. So I don't think this is really a major concern that will change the future of the DAO, but I just somewhat late saw Ali's post about mainnet rep syncing, where it mentions to do a one-on-one conversion between your Gnosis Chain rep and mainnet. And the only note I wanted to make is, maybe perhaps people are also not aware of this, is if you actually pass a successful proposal on DXDAO, you're actually rewarded some rep. So for example, whenever you do your own contributor proposal and that passes successfully, on the funding scheme on mainnet, you're rewarded 500 rep for doing so. On Gnosis Chain, it's lower, it's 100 rep. So theoretically, and I actually believe this rep should not be synced. I think that's a discussion we previously had. I can't actually point to somewhere where it says this, but theoretically, if that is the case, then just taking your balance of rep on Gnosis Chain and syncing that would add up to an incorrect amount. Now, if you're a person that doesn't really submit many proposals other than your worker proposals, the amount of rep that's going to be off is probably going to be very low, because on Gnosis Chain, first of all, you only get 100 rep per proposal. And on top of that, if you really only submit your contributor proposals, it likely won't be that many. But yeah, perhaps it's just worth briefly chatting about that. Yeah.
I don't have the references ready myself, but I suspect it's in the signal proposal on mainnet that kind of like designated the XDAI base, now Gnosis Chain base. But yeah, I believe that it only like called for worker proposal rep to be syncable across chains. So other rep that you maybe get for kind of specified reasons on either base would not necessarily like cross.
Yeah, I think I'm just taking a second look at this now. I think it maybe could have been a bit more clear, but I did interpret it the correct way. The text says, add up your rep amount requested on Gnosis Chain rather than your total rep amount on Gnosis Chain.
Yeah, and I think the requested amount is actually the amounts that you like put in your proposal for mainnet rep. When like really what is, I mean, so the background for all of this, right, is for the funding and voting power schemes, every proposal that gets successfully passed, the proposer, the issuer of that proposal, gets a small rep award on top of whatever they request for their rep award. So on Gnosis Chain, the funding and voting power issues 100 rep for each proposal. And then on Mainnet, it actually issues 500 rep on each successful proposal. And so that's how like Dave, myself, Sky, and other people that do like Mainnet proposals, that's why like that Mainnet rep went quicker. If you look at like what people are requesting in all of their contributor proposals that are passed on Gnosis Chain, they all have specific numbers in them, and that says Mainnet rep. So like the way that I read it, and this is kind of with Dave's point, is that those numbers in the proposal individually should be added up, and that amount should be requested on Mainnet. And so for each proposal, right, that's kind of the numbers there that you can do that, and that would be the appropriate Mainnet amount to be able to claim there.
That echoes my point. But yeah, that's just something to note. And I think just moving forward, like Chris said, the best way is just to add up the rep you actually manually input into the proposals. And yeah, then you should be Gucci, like the British rappers like to say. And then, John, I'm happy to give you 5 minutes to illustrate us about the state of auditing.
Thank you, Dave. Oh, well, it's actually more of a timely like point or like heads up on a couple of things that I'm currently working on. So there's a few balls in the air, so to speak, with auditing and talking to the two auditing firms that we have relationships with, that is being Omega Team and Sigma Prime. They both have had a couple of like openings, like last minute openings in their schedule coming up. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things that I'm going to be working on, like posting today, just to give people a heads up so that they can hopefully kind of review quickly and give feedback in a timely manner. But the first thing is there's a couple of audits underway, right? One was the DXgov contract. So this is like the new wallet schemes plus existing DAO stack contracts that Omega Team had audited earlier in the year. They'd given us feedback. DXgov team had responded to the feedback, and they are currently reviewing that. They are asking for a little additional scope there, which I think is fair, because we took a little bit longer than they kind of call for in their contracts, which is they usually want the feedback addressed within a couple of weeks. Because we were working on guilds, it like took a couple months, and there's like some additional scope in there. So they're asking for, I think it's $4,000 to complete that acceptance of the DXgov contracts. I'm going to put that into a proposal. Yeah, exactly. Like Russ is saying, there's some additional scope there. So I think that's very fair of them to ask for that. In addition, there's like a small contract for Swapper. We have Adam could talk about this, but it's actually pretty simple. It's a wrapper contract for Curve to enable EcoRouter to support native asset, which is XDAI on Gnosis Chain being traded on Curve. For whatever reason, Curve does not like support going in directly with the native asset on Gnosis Chain, and you actually have to wrap your XDAI before trading. And so there's a very like simple contract that Adam has worked on, which does this, but it's going to be handling money, so we need to audit it, and Omega team has offered to do that relatively quickly here. And again, that's I think $4,000. So I'm going to be combining those two things and just going straight to a proposal, since it's a relatively small amount of money and they're tied to like active efforts, just so that we can get that going. But for the other stuff that's coming up, where we have this kind of opportunity to accelerate the timeline because of cancellations for Omega and Sigma Prime, I'm going to be making a forum post today. And so I think Omega's got an opening starting next week, and then Sigma Prime has one starting next month. And the things that we have on the docket are, additional audits for guilds and the DXvote stuff that's being worked on. And then Carrot V1 is kind of the big thing that's ready right now. There's also some other contracts in the works that aren't quite ready yet. But so looking at Carrot V1 and guilds is kind of like the top priorities here. Sigma Prime is actively doing an audit right now on guilds that they should be giving us a report for shortly. I think there's going to need to be some time to respond to that. So I don't want to rush into scheduling anything for guilds. And therefore, I think it makes sense to slot Carrot in next. So what I would suggest here, and this is after talking with the Gov teams and Federico as well, is that we slot Carrot V1 in with Omega team starting, I think said they'd be able to start next week. That'll run for a couple of weeks, and then give then a few weeks for Federico to respond to the findings from Omega team. And then we could also do Carrot V1 with Sigma Prime in July, right? So this is going back to something I've talked about in previous calls, but I think for the contracts that we want to be handling a lot of money, and I would say Carrot V1 is hopefully in that category where we want many users and millions, if not tens or hundreds or even billions of dollars eventually running through the protocol. Best practice is to get 2 external audits. So kind of following that practice, we would be able to accomplish this relatively quickly here, going with Omega this month and then Sigma Prime in the following month. And I also think it makes sense to have these audits done sequentially, because you could actually do it in parallel, right? We could actually get Sigma Prime actually had an even earlier opening, and we could potentially have Omega and Sigma Prime both auditing Carrot. That's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but I think it's a little bit better to have the feedback from one of them kind of addressed and processed and then send it to the second one. So this is just a heads up, 2 things are going to be coming out today. One is going to be a proposal to pay Omega team basically an incremental amount of money for the additional scope from DXgov, and then also for the curve wrapper on Swapper. And then we'll have a forum post to kind of get discussion going on Carrot V1 audits from Omega team and Sigma Prime. So if there's any questions on that, happy to take them now.
Yeah, I think it'd be really great to get the Carrot V1 expedited. That I think would be something. Does that require Jolt, John? The V1?
No, so it doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay.
We don't have Federico on the call. He would probably be best to address this, but Carrot V1 does not require the contracts that we have ready to be audited does not require Jolt. They are written in such a way that you could later put in a system like Jolt. So kind of being ready to doing that something. On Jolt, where I was actually just having a conversation with Federico about Jolt and what the plans are there. I mentioned this on the dev call, but I think we need to be very mindful of how we're spending resources and what we're doing it on. And obviously, you're seeing with the Sigma Prime audits, auditing is quite expensive, right? So and Federico actually brought this up. He was saying hey, I think we should look a little bit more closely at Gelato or maybe the other things that are out there, and just make sure that Jolt is the right choice and the right strategy. So I think we'll be doing a little more thinking and kind of market research there, and sharing that amongst everyone here, and maybe the product strategy call and stuff, and just kind of vetting that approach. I think Jolt could be an awesome move, but we should have our eyes open in terms of like what the costs are going to be, what the bandwidth will be required, and like whether it's like the kind of product that we want to go and compete in the market with, right? With there being like Gelato, Brink, Keeper, and other things out there as well. I think it could be a great opportunity, but I mean, I think we should just do a little bit of thinking before we rush into it. Any other questions on the audit stuff?
Sweet. I guess we can cut the recording there, and then we had one more thing we maybe wanted to chat about after that.